This little lens cost me just £650. It's light, it's sharp, it works perfectly for both photo and video, and honestly, I think it is one of the best value wide-angle zoom lenses that you can buy, and more people should be talking about it. It is the Sigma 16-28mm f2.8, and ever since I picked this up second-hand just a few weeks ago, it has very quickly become one of my go-to lenses. And if you use it on a Lumix camera like myself, the L-mount version, there is one very small trick that might make this one of the smartest bits of kit that you can add into your bag this year. Now this lens has a constant aperture of f2.8 all the way through the focal range, which is great for if you're going to be shooting in low light, and also when you are changing focal length, it means you've not got to worry about changing settings or losing light if you change your focal length, for example. So that is really handy. Considering it has a constant f2.8 aperture, it is still very small and very light, which is great for shooting handheld and traveling with, and it feels solid. It has that typical Sigma contemporary build quality to it, and you know that any Sigma lens that you buy is going to be very well built. They have excellent build quality throughout all of their lenses, but the zoom ring and the focus ring are very smooth, and we also just get a autofocus manual focus switch on the side. It is a very simple design lens. One other really handy thing as well is that when you are zooming in and out, it zooms internally, which means it's not going to extend. So if you are shooting on a gimbal, that means that no matter what focal range you're going to be shooting at, you've not got to worry about rebalancing it. And the main thing for me when it comes to this is that it means you're not going to get any dust inside of the elements. That's just a really nice feature because it's something you don't need to worry about. It's just one of those lenses that is easy to carry, easy to pack, and it's one that you're happy to have with you in your bag wherever you go because you know you're going to be using it more than you're not. And that is half of the battle sometimes. You don't want to be carrying around gear that you're not going to use, but this, I guarantee you will use it more than you're not using. In terms of image quality, it is very impressive. It is sharp across the frame, even shooting wide open at 16mm f2.8. You might get a little bit of vignetting, but that is very common with wide angle lenses, and it's something that you can correct very easily. You're not going to get the sharpness of, say, a prime lens. However, for a wide angle zoom lens that's very affordable, this is very impressive. And unless you're someone that likes to really zoom in and properly pixel peep, which I'm not into at all really, you're not going to notice the difference between this and a much more expensive lens or a prime lens, for example. You're going to be very happy with the image quality that you get from this. It also handles flares pretty well as well, and there's minimal distortion, even wide open again at 16mm, which is great if you want to use this for real estate photography or videography like I do a lot of the time. And autofocus is very quick and reliable as well, especially if you are using it on some of the newer Lumix bodies like the S1 II and the S1R II. That means that it is a great choice of lens for when it comes to video, which is what I tend to use this lens for most of the time, if I'm honest. However, it is still brilliant for stills, especially if you're into real estate photography and things like that. I've used this a lot on real estate shoots, as well as the Lumix 14-28mm, which I have here. Now, even though you are getting a little bit of extra focal range at the wide end with the Lumix, this is a variable aperture lens. It's a constant f2.8 aperture. They are still fairly similar in size. The Lumix is probably a little bit chunkier, a little bit shorter, but they're very similar. And I think the Lumix is just a little bit lighter, but they're basically the same. They're very similar in size and weight. So yeah, two great lenses. It's just which is preference for you. I have used both of these extensively on client shoots. If you'd like a comparison between the two, let me know in the comments down below and I'll get around to making one of those. But I tend to use the Sigma for video more just because changing the apertures works better for video, whereas photography, when it comes to real estate, I tend to shoot most things around f8, so I'm not too worried about aperture, whereas I am a little bit more when it comes to video. I've got a full video on real estate photography. If you want to go and check that out, I will link it up here. But again, let me know if you want a comparison between those two lenses. I mentioned earlier about if you were using the L-mount version with a Lumix camera, and this is where this lens starts to get really interesting, because if you are using one of the latest Lumix cameras, so S5 II, S1 II, S1R II, you get access to something called hybrid zoom. Now this is basically a digital crop, but what happens is it happens automatically as you zoom the lens, and you are still getting access to a 4K image because the image is being downsampled from 6K sensor, or in the S1R2's case, an 8K sensor. So you are still getting a 4K image. But what hybrid zoom is it effectively turns this lens, which is a 16 to 28mm, into a 16 to 43mm, because you are getting that extra bit of reach with the digital crop, and it happens automatically as you zoom in the lens, which is amazing. So that means that even though this is a 16 to 28mm lens, you can still get a little bit of extra reach on the long end without sacrificing any image quality, and that makes a massive difference when you're shooting video. Now you can also use hybrid zoom to shoot photos, and that would turn this lens into a 16 to 87mm lens, which effectively turns this very small, lightweight, constant f2.8 aperture into pretty much the perfect travel lens. There is one very, very small downside to using hybrid zoom while you are shooting photos, and that is that you can only use it while you are shooting JPEG. However, if you are using the real-time LUT feature, that is absolutely perfect, because again, you're getting a 16 to 87mm lens without losing any image quality. You get real-time LUT, which means you're not going to edit any of your photos. That is the perfect travel lens. If there was one thing that I would like to maybe change about this lens, it would be to maybe extend it out to 35mm, although that is me being very picky, because I do realise that that would make it just a little bit heavier and a little bit bigger, and that almost goes against what this lens is all about, really. And if you use it with a Lumix camera, like I mentioned, you have hybrid zoom, so that kind of counteracts that a little bit. So extending it to 35mm is, you don't need it, it would just be nice. So yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with this, especially if you pick it up secondhand for around about 650 quid like I did from MPB. This video isn't sponsored by MPB, by the way. They are an excellent service though, and they've never let me down once. This is pretty much brand new. If you did want to pick it up brand new, I think this lens goes around about 800 quid, so it's still not expensive in terms of ultra wide constant aperture lenses. It's very, very good value, and I think you'll be very happy with the results you get from it. I'm surprised more people aren't banging on about it. So yeah, it's not the flashiest lens out there, but it's one that will constantly be finding its way into your camera bag, and that for me is always the sign of a good lens. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Is it a lens you like to use all the time? Are you thinking of picking it up, or do you think there is a better value wide angle lens out there? Let me know in the comments down below, and I shall see you very soon in the next one.